to the training webinar for today. Just checking to be sure that the fader on my microphone is pushed up so you can hear me. Hi, I'm Dale Franks. Welcome to the training webinar. This week, we are going to talk about stream actions, and we're going to create one from scratch. So, a couple of things that we need to know about stream actions. Most of the time in Process Director, whenever we want to invoke a process, whether we do it via a goal on a scheduled basis, or whether we do it from a knowledge view, where you can have a knowledge view that will start a process for each row in the knowledge view that gets returned. In both cases, we invoke the process directly. And so it creates the process begins to run. If there's a form associated with the process, it gets attached automatically and we're off to the races. Everything is fine. The stream action is fundamentally different. It's designed to enable us to start a process, but the way it starts the process is to find a form definition, to fill out that form, and then for the system to submit the form. Once the form is submitted, the process begins. So this is a switch between the way that other methods of starting a process work in Process Director. This method submits a form, and the form is expected upon submission to kick off the process. Seems kind of weird that we might do it this way, but there is method to the madness. One of the problems that arises whenever you kick off a process by itself, by simply invoking the process, is that the form just gets created as an attachment to the process, and it's empty when it first starts. And so whenever you have a process that's created that way, you have to intervene in some way, either manually by assigning a user task to someone who will open the blank form and submit it, or in the case of a process that is kicked off by a knowledge view, we'll go ahead and fill out the form for you. But if you are kicking off the process with a goal, at some point you've probably got to either run a set form data, or you need to pull some external data to fill, fill fields from database, to fill the fields on the form, perhaps a copy form data. There are a number of different ways that we can do it, but we have to get that form filled out somehow. What the stream action enables you to do is to have a standalone process that works like a normal process, which is to say a user opens up the form, fills out the form, and then submits the form. When the form is submitted, it kicks off the process. What the stream action allows you to do is to take that process, which works like most normal processes. They start on form submission, and it allows us to replicate that, but to do so by pulling in data from any accessible internal or external system to be able to grab some data, and we can grab that data usually through a business value, which means we can grab it from an external database, we can grab it from existing form instances, we can grab it from a REST service, and we can, or technically, I suppose we can grab it from a knowledge view as well. And it allows us to just pull that data in, whether it's from a database or a REST service or wherever, create the form, and then submit the form just like a normal process. So we can actually have this process running as a freestanding process where individuals can open up the form, fill it out, and submit it. Or we can have it running, or we can have it running from a stream action, which will also take and fill out the form and submit it. So the stream action works a little bit differently, but because it works the way it does, You can use the same process for both manual form submissions as well as stream action submissions. So that gives you kind of the best of both worlds to be able to either manually or automatically, via the use of a stream action, submit a form and kick off the process. And so that's what we are going to cover today in terms of creating a stream action to pull in some data, submit a form, and complete a process. And it's also going to build on what we talked about, not last week, but 2 and 3 weeks ago when we talked about SQL statements, because we're actually going to pull some data in from an external database. Now, we're not going to go over the whole point of setting up all of that stuff. We're not going to set it up from scratch. We're just going to create the form process timeline and the stream actions from scratch. But let's take a look at the data. And let's do a quick run through of the stream action in its completed form, and then I'll rebuild it from scratch so that we can see the process step by step. So I have some data, and it is in this right here, this invoices.slxx. It's an Excel file. That's where the original data comes from. Let me go into my downloads folder and open it up so that we can actually see the original data in Excel. We've seen this before because I've used it in a couple of different places, but it's basically just a list of invoice data in a database. So I have 5 invoices from different contractors and for varying amounts, but it's missing type for that invoice. Just now, I've got an extra field here called in process. So we're going to assume that it's going to take, maybe more than a day to process an invoice, but I might have new invoices coming in every day, which are unprocessed. What the stream action enables us to do is to import this data on a recurring basis so that we can process any unprocessed invoices. So right now, all 5 of the records of my data are all unprocessed. So I have 5 unprocessed invoices that need to be taken care of. And so I can start that process. Now, tomorrow, I might have an additional 5 invoices. Now, what I don't want to do is re-import these 5 if I've imported them once, but any additional ones that show up down here, I am going to want to import as they show up as unprocessed. So I'm going to need a flag that tells me whether I am processing these invoices or not. So I only want to pull in the unprocessed invoices. And I might run this stream action. Since stream actions can be scheduled, I can run it on a daily or weekly or whatever basis so that I can pull in the new data I need, but I am going to have to mark the data that I've already pulled in so that it doesn't get inserted into the next import that happens the next time the stream action is scheduled to run. So I'm going to need some SQL to mark this whenever these invoices get pulled in and the process gets started for them. So I'm going to have to use a little SQL to do that. And once I've done so and I've finished my invoices, I am going to need, once I've processed them, to get these 2 fields, the date paid and the payment type, back into the invoice. So I'm going to have to update each of these fields to ensure that I put the appropriate data back in each of those invoices. So this obviously means that I'm going to need a couple of business rules to run here. And by the way, we saw it very briefly and then I switched away from it. That data also shows the different types of payment types. It's on another tab there. And so I have, check, money order, Visa, whatever those payment types are. In fact, we can check what those payment types are here simply by opening up the payment types business value. So all of these are SQL business values. And so here are the payment types that are in that database. So I have cash, credit, crypto, and EFT as my payment types. And that's included, as I said, on another tab of the of the business value. I'm sorry, of the original Excel spreadsheet. The important thing are the unpaid invoices I have. And so here we have that flag, which as we saw a minute ago is set to 0 for all 5 of those records. So if I test this query, it's going to pull in all 5 of those records. This is the unpaid invoices data source that we are going to need to use to invoke our stream action when we create it. So it just pulls back all of these unprocessed invoices. And once it pulls them back, we can invoke the stream action on this data to pull in the invoice ID, the payee, and the amount of the invoice whenever it runs. And I'm going to be pushing that data back inside my process timeline via process timeline activities. We'll look at those a little bit later. So this is the basis of my data. I've got my unpaid invoices. I've got my payment types, which I'm going to use to fill a drop down on the form. And that's really all I need to make this work. Although obviously I do need a data source to make this happen. So I need to be able to have a data source to grab my stream data. Since this is an Excel spreadsheet, it gets imported automatically into the internal user database. I just have an internal user database data source that will grab this specific stream data. I believe, although I don't remember, that this is specific to those 2 tables that get imported when I upload my Excel spreadsheet, my payment types tab and my unpaid invoices tab on that spreadsheet. So this is the only data that this particular data source will be able to see, which makes building our SQL statements a little easier since I only have 2 tables that I have to worry about for creating SQL statements. So that's the basis of my data. We can actually just watch it work by pulling up the stream action. I'm going to rebuild all this here in a few minutes, but for now, I am just going to invoke it normally. So I'm just going to click on process now. I should point out, wait a second, let's go over here and look. Before we do that, let's go ahead and look at my active timelines. I have no active timelines running. I've got some completed timelines from yesterday when I was running through this yesterday afternoon, but nothing is running now. So I am going to go ahead and hit the Process Now button on my stream action, and we'll get the little spinny for a second, and now I will get a message that says we've successfully executed the action. It says run process, although that's not really what we're doing, but it's running it on 5 objects. And if I go in and I look at my active timelines again, well, I have 5 active timelines running, which means I have 5 tasks that are assigned to me to go through each one of these invoices. So we're going to go into, well, I'll tell you what, let's go over to my user profile, since I should have those 5 invoices running. Oh, I've got several other things running, but we'll cancel those. But let's go ahead and take a look at invoice 5 here. We'll open that up. And there we go. I've got all my data for invoice 5. I've got the amounts, the payee, and now I can just say we're going to pay by check, and it defaults to today's payment date. So I'm going to click the processed button, and that will now remove invoice 5. We're going to go ahead and do that again for invoice 4 as well, and we'll process that one. So we've now processed 2 of our invoices. And having done so, if we go back to our active timelines, we can see that we still have invoices 3, 2, and 1, but 4 and 5 are done. Also, if I run my stream action again, and I hit process now, there's nothing to import because everything has already been marked as in process, so it's not going to import any of the other data. So all I have to do is just go into my user profile and fix each one of these invoices. We'll let them pay with Ethereum, I guess, or Bitcoin or Dogecoin or whatever. And we'll go ahead and we'll put that one back to check. And we'll go back over here and well, let me put my data in and we'll process that one. Now, all of my invoices have been processed, and all of the ones from last week's webinar, I'm just going to go ahead and delete all of those running processes, which should clear my task list. Well, forgive me. I need to clear all these off here. So forgive me. I forgot that I had some tasks running, and so I didn't clear them out. So I beg your indulgence to go ahead and finish these off. I think maybe deny is a better choice for an answer than approve, because I think it's making me run through everything twice. So let me just deny each of these requests, and that should be quicker. Let me clear them out. I just want to clear them out because we're going to be coming back here again and again. So I just want to get these out of the queue, which again, forgive me, I should have done this yesterday afternoon, but I didn't think about it. Okay, great. So we have no tasks in our task list. By the way, I do have this form here, this view stream data form, which just shows me all of the data. This is not really part of it. But now that we have processed everything, I can open this up and it shows me all of my records. So these are all of my invoices. We can see the payment dates there. And we can see for each of them, the in process has been set to 1. And I probably should have opened this up once I kicked off all the processes so that we could see that in process flag had been marked, but we can see it now. And we have seen that it will not import any more data. And because it will not import any more data, we have to reset everything back to status quo ante. So I'm going to go back over to my Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to check it out. I'm going to upload the original again, and we'll upload the new version. There we go. That has been uploaded, which means that if I go back and check my data on the view stream data form, it's already imported it, so I don't need to sit here and wait for it to save. Well, I guess I do. Or do I? Think I clicked the wrong. Yeah, I do. It's going to make me wait here. Sometimes on this machine, it takes a couple of seconds to save the Excel spreadsheet, even though it's already been imported, and I'm not entirely sure why. I did do some cleanup, by the way, yesterday on the system, where I had some special CSS that I put in for the UI customization webinar, and it was ruining the way things show up in the UI here and there. I managed to get that fixed, so I've got a running UI here. Okay, so now that I've reset my data and re-imported the spreadsheet, I've reset all the data back to the way it was status quo ante before I ran through the stream action. So fine, we have our data the way that we want it. So now we have to begin building and explaining our stream action. But before we can do that, we're going to need a form and a process timeline to run. So I'm just going to go ahead and create my form definition, and we'll call this the Stream Actions webinar form. And we'll create that, and sure, let's just go ahead and build it here. Stream Actions webinar, and We'll try to spell things right. So I'm just going to need a couple of fields here, and I'm not even going to be, I'm not going to make it, I'm not even going to attempt to make it pretty. So we're going to have an ID, and we'll make this an input field, which we will call invoice ID, and we'll set this to, oh, 3 is big enough. So, because it's only a single digit anyway. So we have our ID field, and then we'll need our uh, vendor field, which we'll call vendor. We'll need our amount field. You know what? I'm going to make this even. Oh, I don't want to do that. Why does it want to delete the entire field? Okay, well, you know what? I probably should have stuck it in a table, but I didn't. All right, well, we're just going to have it on separate lines, I guess. I wanted to try to put them all on one line, so I only had 5 lines instead of 10, but I think this will be fine. So the amount, so I need an amount field. And we are going to go to the field properties for this, and we are going to set it as currency. So it's a currency field. And then I need a drop down for my payment type. Where's the drop down? Right there. And we'll fill that drop down from a business value, which, as we saw, I already have. So that'll be real simple. And payment date, which will be a date time field or a date time picker, a date picker anyway. So we'll just call this, by the way, did I name this payment type? Yes, I did. Okay, just wanted to be sure. So we'll call this date paid, and we're also going to give it a default value of today. So we'll just set the default value to the current date time. And that way it'll just fill out the appropriate date for the date picker. Let's give it a quick test just to be sure that my payment date actually runs. So it's compiling, running for the first time. There we go. 5/15/2025. So that's one field that I don't have to fill out. Great. So we've got a form. I've got to fill out this payment type dropdown. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the Set Form Data tab to do that. No, fill dropdowns tab. What am I thinking? So add our dropdown. We have our payment type dropdown, and we need to fill this from a business value. And stream actions, all invoices, payment types. There we go. Oh, oh no. I've got multiple ones. I don't know which is which. Okay. We're going to save our form for now. I checked everything to make sure it worked. I didn't check everything to be sure that they had unique. So this is stream actions. Stream actions is what we'll call it. Actually, let me change all of these. You know what? Let's call it Stream Actions W for webinar. Stream Actions W. Oh, what have I done? Oh no. Well, I appear to have inadvertently closed my browser. Uh, so, well, I can't see the menus. So let's go back to training. I thought I turned that off. Oof. I don't want to go that full of a screen. There we go. That's back to normal. Back to the content list. Let me save that there. And training webinar, stream actions, data. And where was I? Payment types, I believe. So that should be W. We'll save that. SQL business value. I don't know what that is. Not using it anywhere, I don't think. And unpaid invoices, stream actions, W. There we go. Now I should have relatively unique names for setting the fill drop downs on my form. So let's try this one more time and we'll go back to business values and stream actions W and payment types. There we go. And we'll throw in a one. And the display text will be the payment type. The value will be the ID. Okay, great. I have a form now. I'm not quite done with the form. I do need to create a process timeline. So let me go ahead and create that process timeline. And we will call this the SA webinar timeline. And I'm not going to do any configuration on it yet, except to associate the form for timeline with the webinar form and hit OK. And that's just a best practice to connect the timeline to the form. Although the important thing, now that I actually have the timeline, is to go back to the form and to go to its properties tab and to specify that we automatically want to start the SA webinar timeline. And we also want to do the, well, we don't need to do it, but again, a best practice is to associate both the timelines associated with form property and the automatically start this process property to set both of those properties on the form so that when we submit the form, it will automatically create the timeline. Now, our timeline doesn't do anything at the moment, and we'll have to go back in later and make it do some things. But now we have the two objects that we need to kick off a process timeline. And what we don't have is our stream action, which is what we now need. So at this point, we can go through and create a stream action, and we will just call it the webinar essay. And now we can begin configuring our stream action. So now we're going to go through all of the properties for our stream action. Generally, and you have seen me thousands of times, never add a description, but as a best practice, we should add a description. So this is the essay for the webinar. It doesn't tell us much, but at least I'm filling it in for once. Right below the description, we have the stream action is currently active or not active. The active not active turns on and off respectively, the scheduling component of a stream action. Our general expectation is that just like a goal, a stream action is going to run on a scheduled basis to import data, submit the forms, and kick off these processes. Of course, during development, we don't really need it. We're just going to invoke it manually. But when we create a schedule, that schedule will not work unless the stream action is set to active. And that's the only thing that this particular property affects, is whether the schedule will be respected or not. So you could actually have a running stream action and then at some point go in, set it to not active, and the scheduling component will simply stop. Although if you ever wanted to make it active again, you could just come back here and click the active radio button and it would go back and be active again. So this only controls whether the scheduling runs. You do have a history, but of course we have no history right now about when the last time this stream action was run. It's never been run because we just created it. So we're seeing the appropriate history. And we do need a group and value picker for the stream action, just as we do for the business values and business rules or what have you. And so we are just going to call this one stream actions W, except stream actions are not stream actions. So we better make that right. I'm just going to go ahead and update it at this point. So these are the basic properties that we need to set for the stream action. Obviously, whenever you're first creating it, you don't want to set it active. You don't want to set it active until you're ready for the stream action to begin running on the schedule that it runs. Now we have to go to our data set. So now we need to pull the data set from which we want to run our stream action. So I have a couple of different options here. Now, I have a business value, and so I can just choose that business value as the data source. That's what we're going to do for this, and that is obviously the easiest option that's available to us. However, I don't need to use a data source. Stream actions, if I select SQL data source, enable me to create kind of my own business value right here in the stream action. So while I do need a data source object, because I do need to be able to connect to an outside data source. So in this case, I would select my data folder and I'd pull my stream data. I'm now connected to the database directly. I don't need a business value to make a stream action work. I can create it myself via a SQL command. Now, in most instances, you're not going to want to do this. A, it assumes that you have, some knowledge of SQL, which you might not. B, in most cases, your business values are created by people who do have knowledge of SQL. So it may be that they create the business value for you. So you will never use this option. But if you are a SQL type person and you want to use this option, it's available to you. So for example, in my case, if I wanted to go into training, and what I actually want to do is I want to copy and paste here. So I'm going to come in and steal my unpaid invoices SQL. So I just want to steal that SQL statement out of there, and then we'll go back to our stream action. I can just drop that in there. By the way, again, just like a business value, I have the ability to, select the table that I want to use and click show columns, and it will actually show me the columns that are in that table. I can also hide the columns. Now, in a business value, there is no show columns button. It just does this automatically. So that's a little extra wrinkle there to show or hide the columns. In my case, I I don't really need to because I'm using a select star, which means I'm pulling everything. Um, but as I mentioned previously, this data source that we chose is only linked to these two tables. So these are the only two that it will show. But I could actually make this run. If I test this query, it will succeed. I have 5 records returned. So I can just write the SQL on the fly for my stream action that I want to use. So it actually makes it, independent from the necessity of a business value, although I think I would say that in most cases, uh, you'll have a business value. And for that business value, you will simply choose, in this case, the unpaid invoices query. And now we just have the data that is in our business value. And once again, I'm just going to go ahead and update from this point. The next tab is the Start Process tab. Again, Start Process is a misnomer because that's not what we're doing. We're going to create and submit a form instance, and that will start the process. So, I mean, technically a process is going to get started, assuming that our form is set up, which we just did with our form, to invoke a process on form submission. If you do not have a process that runs on form submission, you're not going to be starting any processes. You'll just be submitting forms, which, by the way, is another reason for doing it the way that we do it in the stream action, even though it's different from the way that we do it everywhere else, which is I may need the data, and I may need to have this data for historical reasons or whatever it is. And then I may have another process where I just go ahead and grab that form instance and bring it into the process, or I might want to do that manually if I need it. It gives me a lot of flexibility. So technically, rather than starting a process, so I don't know what the actual syntax should be. Maybe it should be submit form. Maybe that would be a better name for it. But we're going to assume most of the time you're starting a process. You just need to remember that what we're doing here is submitting a form, not starting a process, which does mean that my form might not be connected to a process. So we have to select the form definition that we want to submit. So we'll go here into Training Webinar Stream Actions, Webinar, and we will pick our essay webinar form. Now here's another little wrinkle that's in here, and I'm not entirely sure when you do this, but you could do this. You can keep new forms unsubmitted after they are created. That adds another little layer of complexity because it's going to create the form. It's going to create the form instances, and it's going to save them, but they're going to be in and saved in an unsubmitted state. Now, presumably that's because either you only want the data and you don't care about the process, at least not initially, or you don't want to automatically start the process. Now, this is going to make your life a little more complicated as a designer because you're going to have to find those unsubmitted forms, and you're going to have to display them to someone, presumably in a knowledge view, that will enable them to open those saved but unsubmitted form instances and actually submit them. So it will get a little more complicated from an implementation standpoint about what you're going to do with it. But we do have the option to have the form, have the process, all of that is all configured, but only create the forms, save them so that they were in a saved but unsubmitted state so that you could go back and presumably submit them manually at some later point in time. I think that's a relatively unusual use case for these, but clearly someone asked for it or that would not be there. And in fact, back in the oldie days, that didn't used to be there. So that is a relatively Well, relatively new property for the stream action. Okay, well, I have my form. I've specified where my data is coming from. Now I have to be able to get all of that external data into my form. Thus, I need to add some field mapping. Now, in our case, we have three fields that we need to fill out. We need to fill out first the ID. So there's our invoice ID. We need to fill out the vendor that we're referring to, and we need to fill out the amount. So I have those three values that are coming in from my external data. So I need to specify the form field into which I want that data to go. And now I've got to select what data goes where. Normally, what you think you would do is go down here to business values and find your, stream actions W. Is that business values? That doesn't look like business. That is business values. So where is stream actions W? There it is. I missed it. Normally, what you would think we would do is go here and start grabbing data from unpaid invoices. But that is not what you want to do in this case. This data has already been grabbed. It already exists inside the stream action. So we don't want to go back and try to grab it again from our source. The stream action already did that way back when we created or configured the data set tab. So the stream action already knows what the data fields are that it is supposed to use. So what we need to do in this case instead is go to value and go to variable. Because what the system has done is that once we configured the data source tab and it saw all of the fields that were in that business value, it created an internal variable to store the row data for each of the rows that are in those 5 rows of our original data. So I need to select, data, or what's the actual syntax, value and variable. And when I do, it's going to give me this drop down here. Now this drop down is just going to contain all of the fields that exist in our original data. Now, I would say that I probably made a mistake on this business value. I included all of the fields. Technically, I didn't need to. Technically, all I needed to grab were the ID, the amount, and the payee fields from my original data. I really only need those 3 fields. And I would still have my 5 rows and I would still be able to do my data. I use select star largely because I'm lazy. So I just pulled back all of the fields in my SQL statement rather than just specifying ID, amount, and date paid. But I do have the ID field, so we're good for there. We can set that variable for the invoice ID, and you'll notice it says variable ID. And I'm just going to have to repeat that for the other 2 fields. So we'll go back to value and variable. There it is. You know what? That is not an alphabetical order. Okay, I hate that. And the field I'm working with is the vendor, which should actually be payee, but fine. There is our payee variable. So that will fill that field. And then we'll go to the amount. And once again, we'll go to value and variable. And we will choose the amount field. And so let us confirm that I've got invoice ID, vendor, and amount. So it should pull my data in the way that I want. Obviously, if I had more fields, I would just click the add field, mapping the appropriate number of time to add the data to the fields. The select distinct data set column, it's not something we're going to use here because we don't need to. If you are a SQL person and you understand what select distinct is, if you put in the name of one of the columns in your data set, like amount or payee or ID, it will, and if there are, let's say, multiple records for a payee, and you hit select distinct, it will select a single record for that payee instead of, repeating it 4 or 5 times. Now, obviously, none of our data here is repeated. And in most cases, your data is not going to be repeated. But if it is, you can select a column that is the distinct column so that it only pulls back one row based on that distinct column. Again, kind of an edge use case. This has been in since the beginning. I don't think I've ever seen it used. And certainly I think in most cases, you actually do want to process every row of the data. For example, in my case, I might have multiple payees, and I might have 2 records that have 2 different IDs for Acme Electric, both of which are coincidentally for $2,000. They're 2 separate invoices, and they both have to be processed, but all of the data is going to be the same with the exception of the ID field, right? Because the ID is always unique. So the vendor will always be Acme Electric, or the payee rather, will always be Acme Electric. The amount for both of those is going to be $2,000 entirely coincidentally. And so the only difference is going to be the variable, the ID. Now, if I were to say, okay, well, select the distinct data set column of ID. Okay, it's only going to return one of those 2 rows, but both of them have to be paid. So I would only end up actually paying one of the invoices, even though I needed to pay both of those invoices. Actually, I don't think I would select ID. I think I would select either payee or amount. So in my case, that wouldn't work well. But if you have a case where you might have repetitious records and you can identify a column that will only show you, a single row to eliminate all of those multiple records, you can use a distinct column. Again, it's really a specific SQL thing, and it's also an edge case, but you certainly have that ability in the product. Then we have the schedule tab. And by the way, I'm just going to go ahead and update because if I happen to go over here and click, I'll lose stuff and have to rebuild it. And I don't want to do that. So let me update again, and we'll move on to our next tab, which is the schedule tab. Now, normally you're going to select run a stream action on a schedule, and you're going to get the standard set of scheduling fields that exist for goals or any other scheduled object in the system, where you set the increment on which you want it to repeat. The default is to repeat every 1 day, but obviously you can set it for minutes, hours, etc. Again, minutes is always tricky in Process Director. Process Director is not a real-time system. It is a near real-time system. We always recommend, and certainly on our system we always recommend that we run the activity check page every 20 minutes. A couple of reasons for that. If you have a system that doesn't have a lot of people on it, running the activity check every 20 minutes keeps IIS from just shutting down due to lack of use. IIS does that to save resources, which means that if the IIS shuts down, the next time somebody comes back to Process Director, IIS has to go through this, what is for a computer, a lengthy process of restarting IIS, re-implementing the Process Director application, doing all of the just-in-time compiling for all of the DLLs. And so people have to sit there and wait for, from 15 to 30 seconds while the system reboots itself. So we recommend that you run the activity check every 20 minutes. That keeps IIS alive. Also, what it does is it kicks off the timer checks so that if you have any sort of scheduled activity, those will get kicked off. Now, if you're on a busy system, so here's the way Process Director does timing. There's no countdown clock in Process Director. If you say, I want this to happen, every hour, then when it happens, there's not some countdown clock going tick, 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 like 60 minutes, trying to count 60 minutes and then automatically kicking off again. Timing is based on timer checks running on the system. Now, timer checks are invoked in many different ways. They're invoked by user actions. So when a user completes an activity and a new activity is started, timer checks have to run to ensure that that new activity's duration is set and a due date is specified. And if it's a wait activity, we have to set the timer for the wait activity. All of those timer checks, they run based usually on user action. On a really busy system, they can be close to real time. So if you're, like a university, right? We have some universities that have like 30 or 40,000 student users. So I think we can, plus their faculty and staff. So I think we can safely assume that at any given time, someone is on that system doing something, which when they complete whatever the something is that they're doing, will probably kick off a timer check, which means the timer checks are probably going to run within a few seconds of the time they're supposed to run. On a system that isn't busy, has very few users, like a development system. There's always a problem with developing on a development system. Anytime you have anything scheduled, is that the timer checks never go off. Or rather, when they do go off, they only go off when the activity check runs. And so therefore, things don't happen when you expect them to happen. So in general, considering that we run the activity check page every 20 minutes, I think it's fair to say that any time interval less than 20 minutes is going to be iffy. Now, again, you got a super busy system and there's always, 20 or 30 users, banging away at the system at any given time, then you're probably going to run the timer checks fairly often. But on a non-busy system, the best you can count on that is going to happen is that the timer check is going to run every 20 minutes. So intervals of less than 20 minutes are going to be kind of iffy in Process Director because, like I said, it's all timer check based. There are no clocks that are counting down times and then automatically kicking off when that time expires. Events only kick off when a timer check runs and the timer check notices, oh, okay, this has expired. So now I can do the thing that I'm supposed to do when this timer expires. And so you just have to keep that in mind. Process Director is not a real-time system. It's a near real-time system. So going below 20 minutes is probably iffy on many systems. However, on a really busy system, it might be reliable as well. It's hard to tell. I don't know how busy most of your systems are, but that's just something to keep in mind. You can set a repeat interval to start on a specific day and time. So if you want to run it every day, right now, if you set it to run every day and I just hit OK and I save it with no other configuration, then it's probably going to kick off tonight at midnight. If you want to run it at around 8 o'clock, set the repeat interval starts at 8 o'clock so that it generally runs at 8-ish every day. So I have this system. This system is training. There are not a lot of people on it, but it's the primary system that I use. And so when I'm in here and working, I do notice that based on when the activity timer runs, if I set something to start at and in fact, I do have something that runs pretty much at 7 o'clock every morning. I get up every morning. I get to work at 8:30, and Generally, sometime between 7 and 7:10, that activity has run, um, because it's set to run at 7 a.m. So I'm generally close to the time that it runs, but there's like this 10-minute, even though it happens every day, there's like this 10-minute window before it happens. Usually because at 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm not here yet. And so usage of this system is going to be pretty light, although there are some automations and things that run on this system that do kick off the timer checks. So you can set a start interval time, and it's going to start about that time. I think the latest I've seen my 7 o'clock thing go off is at 7:10 every morning. So I'm going to assume that that's when the activity check run and it prompted the timers. So you can set those start times. Days of lead time, I'm always so agnostic about this because what it's designed to do is, let's say I have a process that has to be completed on the first of every month. Right? So I would set the repeat interval starts at, let's say in this case, June the 1st. So we can go and set this to June the 1st. So I say, okay, this is when I want it. This is when the repeat interval starts, June the 1st. But in actuality, I need it to be completed by June the 1st, not to start. I need it to be completed by that date. So the way that we've done it, which I personally find confusing, is we've added days of lead time. So let's say I think this is going to take 5 days to complete. Or let's say I think it's going to take an entire week. Let's give myself a whole calendar week. I'm going to give myself 7 days of lead time. What this means is that this will not start on 6/1. It will actually start 7 days prior to 6/1 so that I can finish it on 6/1. So I find that confusing. But you can only have one label per control. And so what we have chosen to do is call this days of lead time. So this is my start, 6/1/2025, but I really want it to be done by 6/1/2025. So I'm going to drop in 7 days of lead time. So it actually starts 7 days earlier. This is common, like in the goal, when we're checking on things, like if a report has to be done by a certain date, and has to be approved and the timeline completed, or whatever it may happen to be. That's what this is set up to do. I'm not so sure that that's something you would do in terms of scheduling for a stream action, but it might be, so you have that capability. Limit to business hours only does, in fact, limit the stream action from running at any time outside of business hours. So it will simply only run during the business hours that you set. Now, this business hours is tricky because process directors' default business hours are 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Those may not be your business hours. Your business hours might be a little more restrictive, slightly different. For example, I worked for, 15 years as a contractor and 10 years on active duty for the Department of Defense. So 25 years of my life I've spent working for the Department of Defense, and my workday started at 7:30 every morning and ended at 4:30 every afternoon, which is kind of a weird workday, but it's the workday that's common to the military components of the Department of Defense. And what other components of the Department of Defense would there be other than military components? I guess I meant military and civilian components of the Department of Defense. So weird business hour. Now, in Process Director, there is the business hour start and business hour end custom variables that you can set in your VARS file. So in your VARS file, you can actually set what your organization considers the start and the end of its business day. Gets a little tricky if you're a nationwide organization, where we have 4 time zones in this country. Well, technically, I think we have 5 time zones in this country, may even be 6 when you count Alaska and Hawaii. But whatever you count, the fact is we have lots of time zones. And if you have locations in all of those places or offices in all of those places, you don't actually have a set business day. So it gets a little tricky determining what your business day start and your business day end is. Like I said, Process Director just says 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Those are business days. By the way, that also means no weekends and also no holidays. So in Process Director, we have the business holidays system variable where we can set up what system or what holidays are every year in our system. And Process Director will respect those as non-business days as well, which, by the way, I should expect to see a lot more support tickets from you, especially from those of you who are cloud customers, asking me to update your business holidays every year, which should make January a lot busier for me, or at least the end of, well, I'm often not here at the end of December. I don't take much time off, but when I do, it's usually that week between Christmas and New Year's because no one else is working either. So when I come back on December 1st, my life should be a little busier than it is. So you may need to keep in mind that we do have those business hours system variables and business holidays system variables that you might want to update on your cloud installation by submitting a tech support ticket. And I hope that all of you do not decide to do that this afternoon, but some of you probably should. Some of you, I don't think, have updated your business holidays ever. So that limit to business hours only shows up for holidays. Then you have the scheduler period end. I guess that's actually above limit to business hours. But just like the repeat interval starts at, you can set a date when you want to automatically stop this from running. So if you have a scheduler period end and it reaches the end date, it will actually go back to your properties tab and will set your stream action as not active. So your stream action won't actually run. And of course, you have the Process Now button, which always enables you to invoke the stream action anytime that you want. Now, obviously, we're not going to sit here and watch until 8 o'clock tomorrow morning for this thing to run. So we are just going to turn off automatic stream action processing, and we're just going to go with the Process Now button. So I should be able to click this at this point. Well, let me update it just to be sure that we're all updated. I should be able to click this and I see the spinny and it says successfully executed the run or the action, which is run process on 5 objects. This is a standard notification, so I don't think we actually did a run process. What I think we did, let me hit OK just to be sure everything is saved. What I think we did is that we created 5 form instances and my process didn't actually do anything. So I should have no active timelines, but I should have 5 completed timelines because my timeline currently has no timeline activities. So in order to make this thing work, I'm going to need my timeline to do a couple of different things. And really look, at this point, that's the stream action. My stream action is configured. It works. So at this point, I'm not even going to continue configuring because it just takes up time that we don't need to take up. I actually want to go back to our completed sample application because I do want to take a closer look at this invoice processing timeline because it needs to do 3 things. First, it needs to set up my in process flag as in process so that I don't run the stream action again, because here's why that needs to work. If I go back to my stream action and I hit process now, it's going to run it on 5 more objects and 5 more objects again And look, here's another 5 objects. So at this point, I am now 20 objects deep into form and process timeline instances because I keep running it and my data is always the same. I've got to fix that so that the next time I run this, it's not going to create 5 new form instances and 5 new process timeline instances. And right now, that's what it's doing. So I need to be able to go back and set up my process timeline to fix that. So we're just going to go in and look at our invoice processing timeline just to see how I have set it up. So this part we did previously. So let's look at our process timeline activities. So I'm going to, as I said, I need to do 3 things, but I only talked about 1 thing. The first thing I need to do is fix that set in process problem. Second thing I need to do is actually have a human being process the invoice. And once that happens, the third thing I need to do is to update that payment info. The first and third of those things are all going to be done via the SQL command custom task. So like we talked about 2 weeks ago, once I am going to write an insert or an update or a delete statement, and in this case, these are both update statements, I'm going to need to ensure that I use the SQL command custom task in order to make that happen. So when you run a custom task in a process timeline, usually asks you what the container form is. Now, my main form for this process is process invoices. So that's the form that is going to be my container form. That's the form that's going to contain my form controls, and that will be used as the source form for my SQL statement, because my SQL statement is going to, well, in this case, in this activity, my SQL statement doesn't, it still does need to do something. It needs to know what the ID is of, I believe, I'm not sure what my SQL statement says now, now that I think about it. Yes, I do need my invoice ID. And that means I need to be able to get it from the form via a system variable. So the set container form property, super important in this context because it specifies the form from which my data is going to come, which means it is the form whose form fields I can use as system variables in my SQL statement. So on the configure tab for this, I am just going to write the update command. I really only need to do one thing. I need to set in process equals 1, where the invoice ID equals the invoice ID that is on the form. So far, we've been talking about our data as a record set of 5 records. Once we submit the form, we are out of the record set business. We are now looking at a single row of data and the fields that are included in that single record. So we've gone from record set to record. So each form is going to have the data from one of my database records. So whenever I need to update some of that data, because I've created the form with the stream action, I've pulled the ID and set the ID into the invoice ID field on my form, I now have a single value that identifies uniquely one record, and I can use to update that record. So as we talked about 2 weeks ago, that where clause is super important, and the invoice ID in this case is the single field that I need to specify the record that I want to update. So we're going to update the in process, and it's going to be the same every time. We're just setting the flag to 1. So originally the data was at 0. Now the flag is at 1. So the first thing that's going to happen on my process, the first thing that's going to happen is the stream action is going to run. It's going to fill out the form and submit the form. The form, when submitted, invokes my process timeline. The very first activity of my process timeline will be to go back to the original data and to set the in process flag as 1. And that's important because remember, our original business value is looking for a value of 0 to determine whether to bring in any new records and create the new forms in my stream action. So this prevents any record that I've previously brought into the form, and by setting its in process flag as 1 and making it ineligible to be returned by the original system variable. So that's the first thing I need to do. This lets the system know that that particular invoice is now in process. Second thing I need to do is have a human do a thing that says, hey, this invoice has been paid. What they need to do is select the payment type and the payment date, although as we saw earlier, the payment date is just defaults to today. So unless the payment date is different than today, they don't need to make a change to that. They just need to pick the payment type, which we're going to assume by setting those two fields processes the invoice and records all of our appropriate data. So they only have one result processed. So I've opened it up, I've set my stuff, and I've processed it. Obviously, in the real world, you might have other things that you want to do. Once I have set that data in the form, so now I have a payment type and I have the payment date, that data needs to go back into the original database as well, so that I can note all of the data that, or I can store all of the data that I need to store in my external database. It could be an accounting system or ERP system, CRM system, whatever it is. I need to shove those changes back into that system, into the appropriate record. So again, we are just going to execute the SQL command custom task. And once again, process invoices is our core form. And in this case, I am going to set the payment type using the, in this case, payment type field on this form. And the date paid is going to be set with the payment date field on the form. Again, where the invoice ID equals the invoice ID that is on the form. So this is the SQL command that sends my data back to the database. And so with it all set up like that, we can go back and we're going to just open this form and we'll just do it one more time. We'll just do one more run through and then we'll call it a day for today. So we're going to run my stream data form and I'm just going to stick it down here. So now we can see our original data. So with that original data, well, that's not what I wanted to do. I need to open it, process my stream action. Again, it's exactly the same as the one that we just configured for the webinar. So we've run the action on 5 objects. So now we can go back and refresh our form here. Great. Now we can see that in process has been set to 1 for all 5 of the records. So now I'm processing these. So if I click process now again, or the schedule runs again, it's going to run the process on 0 objects. We know that works because we saw it earlier. So now all I have to do is go in and redo all 5 of those stream actions. So again, we can just replicate this just as we did previously by processing all of these, or processing them a little bit at a time, because now that we've processed a couple, we can go ahead and refresh this form. And now we can see, well, I thought I did 2 and it's not showing me 2. Let's do 4 here. Check, processed. There we go. I'm not sure what I'm not sure what I did wrong on that one. I may not have properly completed that form. I thought I selected a date, but I may not have, and falsely submitted the form. So it's still showing up as 0. So I would need to go back in my So this is what my data. So that tells me I missed something. So let's go back into my process invoices and let's look at number 3 again. And I did not, in fact, select the data. So now I've saved it and I should be able to go back and refresh. Did it save that data? I may have it set up to not, in fact, save that data, but no, it looks like it saved it. So I'm not sure why I'm still not seeing any data for number 3 there, other than the fact that it may be looking at the wrong 3. I don't think so. Well, I'm not sure what's going on there, but I did mess it up. So that's on me. Other than that, my data is there. All of my actions are complete. I believe they're all complete. I shouldn't have any active timelines running. Nope. 3 is still out there. Let's view the form. Check. Okay. Process invoice was done. One or more activities is in an error state. Well, let's go to this activity and let's restart the activity. It's in an error state, I believe, because when I originally ran it, I didn't have data to pass back to the process. And so my SQL command failed because I could not update because there was no value for my amount. There was no value for the payment date. So my SQL statement failed. So I had to open this up. I had to restart that particular activity, which means, by the way, since I have done that, I should be able to view my stream data, and I should have 5 fully formatted records with all of my data. And I'm now fully caught up with all of the invoices that were outstanding for my organization. And that's Stream Actions. That's all I have for you. So today, a bit of a short one, not even an hour and a half today. So I'm giving you a substantial balance of your time back. Use it wisely, use it well. See you next week. So long.